Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing exactly that, diving deep into a source that looks at something pretty fundamental.
Mm,
It's about those daily habits that, well, quietly shape our well-being.
that's right. The source we're focusing on comes from a video script. It zeroes in on what it calls 10 bad habits that affect a person's well-being. So, yeah, common patterns that can sometimes work against us.
And our mission here,
Yeah.
pretty straightforward, pull out the key insights from this source, quickly but thoroughly. What are these habits? Why does the source say they matter? What does it suggest?
Basically, so you can walk away feeling hopefully pretty well informed about these areas in your own life.
We all want healthier, maybe happier lives, right?
Yeah.
But this source, it makes a really strong point that it's often the small stuff, the habits we barely notice, that might be sabotaging things.
Exactly. They can kind of chip away without us even fully realizing it's happening.
So let's get into it. Let's unpack this list of 10 habits the source points to as negatively impacting our mental, emotional, and, physical health too.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Okay, first up, the source puts neglecting sleep right at the top. This feels, well, foundational, doesn't it?
Yeah, the source is really direct about this one. Sleep. It's framed as, an absolute necessity, not some kind of luxury you can just trim when you're busy.
Right, not something you just cut corners on. And the impact it lists is pretty big. Skipping sleep, staying up super late. The source says it messes with brain function, mood.
Even your immune system. It's not just about feeling tired the next day. It's presented as more of a systemic thing.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it.
And the advice is clear. Aim for 7 to 9 hours every night. The source kind of frames it like an investment.
Makes sense. Okay, so from sleep, which is maybe more external power, let's talk fuel, the source moves on to poor eating habits.
And it's not just what you eat, but the patterns, right? Like relying too much on processed foods or skipping meals entirely.
Yeah, that pattern aspect seems key.
The source highlights how these habits have effects right now, beyond just the long term. They drain your energy, mess with your focus.
And eventually contribute to those bigger health issues down the line.
Exactly. It makes that simple point. Your body needs actual fuel, not just, fillers. The suggestion is pretty straightforward. Prioritize real, whole foods.
Okay, now here's one I think most of us wrestle with: excessive screen time.
Oh, yeah. Just spending way too much time looking at screens.
The source connects it to a few things, right? Like eyesight strain, which makes sense, and disrupting sleep. Again, that ties back to the first habit.
Right. But it also digs into the mental health side. It specifically calls out the social media comparison trap.
Yes. Comparing your messy behind the scenes to everyone else's shiny highlight reel, that's a powerful point from the source. So what's the suggestion?
Boundaries. Basically, set limits. Create screen-free times or zones. The source really emphasizes being conscious about it.
Right, active limits. Okay, shifting gears a bit from external stuff to internal. The source brings up bottling up emotions. Just, ignoring how you feel.
And what's interesting is why the source says this is bad. It argues ignoring feelings, well, it doesn't actually make them disappear.
No, it just buries them, right?
Yeah, until maybe they build up and kind of explode later. The source stresses that mental and emotional health need, like active maintenance, just like physical health.
Okay, so that maintenance, what does the source suggest?
Getting it out somehow. Talk to someone you trust, maybe journaling. Just acknowledging the feelings instead of stuffing them down.
Makes sense.
Okay.
Next habit, this one can really affect our energy and just feeling overwhelmed, saying yes too often.
Constantly agreeing to everything people ask.
The source uses that classic analogy here, doesn't it? The one about not being able to pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. And the result, according to the source, is predictable. You end up feeling drained, maybe even a bit resentful,
Yeah, I can see that. So it's about learning to say no.
Right. And the source makes a point of saying you can learn to do it without feeling guilty about it. It reinforces that your time, your energy, they're valuable resources. You have to protect them sometimes.
So protecting your resources.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, the source gets into something potentially more serious, relying on substances.
Yeah, it mentions using things like alcohol, cigarettes, even energy drinks maybe, as a way to cope or escape or just relax.
And the source's take.
Well, it acknowledges there might be some, short-term relief, maybe, but the long-term view, the source is really clear. The consequences are serious and harmful. It warns against using these as your main coping tools.
Someone said.
find healthier ways. The source points to things like, exercise, maybe meditation, or even seeking therapy if needed, more constructive
Right,
outlets.
constructive coping. Okay, let's turn inward again. Negative self-talk, that inner critic.
Yeah, this is a big one. The source really emphasizes how the way you talk to yourself, like internally,
Mhm.
it has a real direct impact. It keeps chipping away at your confidence, your mental well-being over time.
It's easy to forget how powerful that inner voice is. What's the source's advice here?
It sounds simple, but it's hard in practice. Self-compassion. Basically, try talking to yourself the way you talk to a friend you really care about, with kindness, understanding.
Treat yourself like a friend.
That's a good way to put it.
And kind of related to that, and also screen time, is comparing yourself to others.
Ah, yes. Measuring your own life against what you see of others, especially as the source notes on social media.
The source flat out calls it a losing game.
Mm,
And you can see why, right? You're comparing your entire messy reality.
to someone else's carefully curated highlight reel. Yeah.
And the result, the source says, is pretty much always dissatisfaction, feeling like you're not good enough, lower self-esteem.
So the advice is to shift focus.
Exactly. Focus on your path, your progress. The source stresses that everyone's journey is different, it's personal.
Good reminder. Okay, nearly there. This next one, I think it hits home for a lot of busy people. Overworking and no downtime. Mm-hmm. That trap of just constantly needing to be productive, even if it means sacrificing your health or relationships.
What's the source's angle on this?
What's interesting is how it frames rest. Rest isn't laziness, it says. It's actually essential. Essential for performance, for well-being. It's like a required part of the equation.
Not just an optional extra if you have time.
Precisely. So the source's message seems to be something like, sure, work hard, but make sure you rest even harder.
Work hard, rest harder. I like that. Okay, finally, habit number 10 brings us back to the physical. Lack of movement.
Basically, a sedentary lifestyle, sitting down for hours and hours every day.
The source uses a pretty stark phrase here calling sitting the new smoking. That definitely gets your attention.
It really does. It underscores the potential impact. And according to the source, that impact is broad. It affects your mood, your energy, your metabolism, pretty much everything.
So not just about physical fitness, but overall well-being again.
Right. And the suggestion is encouragingly simple. Just move daily. Even something like a 20-minute walk, the source says, can make a real difference.
Okay, so that's the list. 10 habits, all drawn directly from this source material we've been exploring.
And you can really see the common thread, can't you? The habits you practice day in, day out. They genuinely shape your life, your well-being. It's cumulative.
Yeah, absolutely. But I like that the source doesn't just leave it there. It ends on a hopeful note.
Yeah, it reminds you that every day is basically a fresh start, a new chance to choose differently, to build habits that actually serve you better.
And the advice is practical. Start small, focus on consistency. It reinforces that putting effort into your well-being, it's worth it.
Definitely. Your well-being is worth the effort.
And it leaves us, and you listening, with a question to think about based on the source's own wrap-up. Considering these 10 habits we just went through, which one are you perhaps focusing on or thinking about right now?
Yeah, something to maybe reflect on as you go about your day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we hope this deep dive into the source gave you some valuable things to consider.
Until next time.